Hey guys, it's me. It's Queen Osset Haru, and thank you for joining me for another wonderful edition of Ask an Aquarius. If you haven't already, please hit the red subscribe button and smack the bell. Alright guys, if you would like to get a reading done, please email me and I will give you an appointment. And if you like this video, please comment, give it a thumbs up, and pass it on to somebody else. So I had a conversation with this woman, right? It was interesting. She said to me that she was talking to her therapist, and her therapist told her that a person who is raised with love and a person who is raised with survival, basically no love and just survival, are going to view the world differently. And she said that she was raised on survival. She didn't get a lot of love from her parents. Her father wasn't around. Her mother was in the street, she said, mostly hanging out, partying, dating different people. So she spent most of the time in the house with her grandmother and her aunts. So she said that she really wasn't raised on very much love. Her aunts and her grandmother was doing their own thing. She was kind of just, she felt like she was just in the way. So, and they were always fighting and arguing with her mom about taking her with them and things like that. She had all these awful memories, which broke my heart. These awful memories about how she was basically neglected and tossed aside and felt like she was always in the way. So she learned to just kind of shrink, herself and just be out of the way so nobody would get angry with her. And they didn't abuse her. They just kind of were very indifferent towards her, which is abuse in itself. So she said to me, what would be the difference if she had been raised with love? And I was like, well, when you're raised on survival, just getting, day to day, if you're being abused, if you're being neglected, whatever the case is, you don't trust the world. You don't trust the world. You 9 times out of 10 develop severe trust issues. Most of us do anyway, not everybody. Because what happens is that you see the world as a dangerous place, and an unloving place, an unhappy place in some cases. You see the world as being a burden on you sometimes, or you being a burden on the world. You don't see it in a positive. You don't see life in a positive. But when you're raised on love and gratitude and happiness and joy, and mind you, I wasn't raised on these things either. I just see this from what I'm reading and learning and the therapy courses and the people I'm talking to that were raised on love. Can you believe that there are some people who actually made it through their childhood without major scarring? When people tell me about it, I'm just like amazed. I'm like, really? Because I don't know anybody in my personal life who had, except for I shouldn't say anybody, I know few people in my personal life who haven't had major scarring, major wounds during childhood. So for somebody to tell me, oh, my childhood was great, it was idealistic, or, those kind of things, I've only heard here and there. And when I hear it, I'm like, oh, that's amazing. So some people were raised on love and affection and those kind of things. And at this point in their life, those people probably don't have the same issue with the universe. They're probably able to trust the universe more easily. They probably see the good things in the world. They probably see both aspects of it. They're not going to be blind to the other aspect, but they probably, how some people see the glass as half empty and some see it as half full? A person raised on love is going to see it as half full. A person raised on neglect and survival is going to see it as half empty. That's the difference in many of the attitudes. Now, this doesn't mean that a person raised on love is automatically going to be like that either. Because remember, some people will be raised on love and still not turn out right. It happens all the time. And some people will be raised on survival, but have such a strong self-determination that they come up a beast, ready to make things happen and, going forward and blazing trails. So it doesn't mean that, if you're raised one kind of way, that is going to dictate your life, because there are other factors involved, such as who you are on a soul level, what you choose to gravitate towards, and the things you choose to do with your life. So it's not a perfect science, like, one is going to be great and the other one's going to be doomed. But in general, when a person is raised on love, they have more trust of the universe. It's easier for them to come into relationships with people. It's easier for them to nurture people and be a part of things. A good friend, for instance. It's easier for them because they were raised on love. They were raised on how to deal with their emotions in a healthy way. That's why I always wish, if I had one wish, it would be to turn back time and parent again. I would love to start my daughter's journey from the scratch because there's so many things I've learned since she's been grown that I could have used back then that would have been great for her. You know, I think every parent thinks about that. We all learn things later, and I think we do those with our younger kids. That's why they always say the first baby is an experiment, and the second and third one, that's when you have your real wisdom, you know. So I wish I could go back and, you know, do that whole thing over again, because these are the things I'm talking about. I would have raised her with, she was raised with a lot of love, and she still is actually, but very close. But I think I would have encouraged her to be more independent, and I didn't do that. So, you know, certain things, raising your kids with love, raising them to be not afraid. That independence was about my fear. So if I had raised her and if I had not been so afraid, then I think that would make a difference in her life, even today. So I think that when it comes down to it, a child that's raised with love in general is going to have a better shot at being a loving person, getting into loving relationships, having a loving relationship with their own children. This kind of person, I think, would be better in those ways. If you're raised on survival, it's really not all bad, because one thing about being raised on survival is you're probably pretty tough and pretty resilient. You might have some issues with communication. You may have some issues with expressing your feelings in a healthy way. Those kind of things. Relationships may be a challenge, but this person is going to be pretty tough, pretty resilient, pretty independent. You know, this is the kind of person who, if they, you know, mold themselves and, you know, really apply themselves, they might be able to be like the CEO or something, because they're a trailblazer, you know. This is a kind of person who really can do something special in that way. So it's not all bad, but as far as their relationships, their communications, those things could be very problematic because they haven't been modeled to them. It hasn't been modeled to them how to deal with a problem that happens in a family and you're upset, you're angry, you're pissed off at your lover. So they're going to do what they saw or what they didn't see or what they just think. For me, I didn't see a lot of that model, so I took it from television. And that was better than nothing, but it wasn't good because it gave me very unrealistic expectations of what relationships were going to be like. I didn't really see my mother having healthy relationships with people. I saw her having dysfunctional relationships with all of us. So I didn't get to see what it looked like to do it in a healthy way. So the only thing I had was television. And you guys can imagine those situations, they do talk things out on TV a lot of times. The old sitcoms we watched when I was a kid, you know, they tried to make everything look picture perfect, you know, Leave It to Beaver kind of energy, you know. So if you're looking at those types of shows, you're expecting everybody to behave perfectly. You're expecting everybody to understand. You're expecting everybody to talk things out and be kind to each other. You know, you're expecting that. And when I got into the world, that's not what I got. That's not what I saw around me. So I started to engage from a more dysfunctional place because that's what was modeled. I had two things, dysfunction and TV. When TV didn't work, I went to dysfunction. So it is very true that when you're raised on survival, it's a different experience. And depending upon what happens as you grow up, like, do you come out of that? Do you come into a more loving environment? You know, what happens is the question. Or do you just go through that period, become very tough, very resilient, and then maybe later on work on your own stuff like I did? So this is different for everybody. You know, everybody's experience is going to be a little bit different. But the bottom line is that the best way to raise children is with love. You know, I don't believe in not disciplining children because I've seen that with people and that doesn't work out well sometimes either. I do believe in disciplining children, but I believe in doing it with love. So instead of like, you know, dropping your elbow on little Tommy, you know, you sit him in timeout and make him talk about what happened and why he was behaving that way. Now, mind you, these are just ideas that I have. Like, we would do these in school with the kids. So we did test them out on our students. So in school, we did these kind of things. So I would, you know, I would love to go back and be like, okay, let's do this again and do it that way and see what actually happens. But I believe that you have to do something, you know, you have to teach your children right from wrong. And just letting them run free, you know, and just letting them do whatever they want and not saying anything or giving them any guidance, to me, is irresponsible. So I think the best way is to raise them with love. But I think that sometimes people, they get it twisted as to what that looks like, because children don't come with a manual, and we are all just going by what we know. And sometimes what we know isn't adequate enough, you know? And sometimes we try to give them the opposite experience of what we had, you know, and end up creating a whole different problem. I wanted to give my daughter the opposite experience of my life. So I wanted to give her a mother that she was close to, had a good relationship with, and could understand each other. But in doing so, what I created was a spoiled baby. I really did. My little baby, she's old now, and I still call her my little baby. She's 25 now. But in doing so, I spoiled her, I sheltered her, and I really didn't encourage independence, like I said. So I think that some of the times we're trying to do that. So I really think that what helps, especially if you're, you know, looking at raising your own kids, it helps to read, it helps to learn, it helps to learn communication, helps to learn methods of discipline that are appropriate for kids. That's the kind of thing that if I was going to have a baby, I'd be constantly reading for 9-10 months. Those are the things you want to do. You want to raise them in love, with love, as much as possible. So yeah, there is a big difference between the two. And you never know. You never know. It's nature and nurture, not nature versus nurture. All right, guys, check me out. If you would like to get a reading, email me. All my information is underneath this video, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.